If you were to look up what Canada's second-level administrative divisions are, or essentially what their equivalent to US counties are, you would get one of two answers. It's complicated, or census divisions. Census divisions are simply the way that Statistics Canada divides up the provinces and territories. They are used commonly to show Canada on the county level. For example, on the website MapChart. However, these census divisions are not Canada's second-level administrative divisions. While they do in some provinces represent different governments, such as the counties of Ontario, in other provinces they divide up the land purely for statistical purposes, so the divisions are not administrative in any way. This leaves us with the first explanation. It's complicated, and yes, it is indeed. Every single province and territory in Canada has their own designation for what their subdivisions actually are. So let me now introduce the map for this video. This is the Canadian second-level subdivisions map. And as you can see, it shows the types of divisions found within each province and territory. So let's look one by one and explain the situation. But before we look into the provinces, there are two types of divisions that I want to explain. Throughout all of the provinces and Northwest Territories, you will find Indian reserves. Across Canada, there are 3,394 Indian reserves that act as land owned by the federal government, but for the use of Canadian First Nations. The Indian Act of 1876 gave the federal government the authority to oversee the land, and the First Nation councils the ability to govern over the reserve lands, at least to an extent overseen by the federal government. This essentially makes all the Indian reserves separate from the second-level divisions, and even separate from the provinces, because they are managed by the federal government and the First Nations. We also have unorganized areas. These unorganized areas are places where the second level doesn't exist at all. And this is mostly because they are not populated enough to where local government could exist and function properly. Because of this, they are governed directly by the province or territory instead. Unorganized areas are found in Newfoundland and Labrador, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Prince Edward Island, and the Yukon. However, there are other divisions on this map that are unorganized, but they have a special designation by the province or territory. So now let's look at each province's divisions, starting with Alberta. Alberta, along with British Columbia, has the most unique divisions. 4 of these divisions are defined in Alberta's Municipal Government Act, or MGA. Now, as you'll notice as we keep talking about these provinces, each province has a municipal government act that specifically outlines what their municipalities are. First, we have urban municipalities. The Municipal Government Act designates 4 different types of urban municipalities in Alberta, that being cities, villages, towns, and summer villages. These urban municipalities are full municipal corporations, which means that they have their own services like police, fire, waste management, they manage their own roads, etc. There are 257 urban municipalities, and according to the MGA, there are specific parameters for how these urban municipalities can form. Specifically, cities need to have a population of 10,000 or more, towns need to have a population of 1,000 or more, villages need to have a population of 300 or more, and they all have to have a certain population density as well. Now, summer villages are a bit stranger, because they are places where people move out during the winter, and so are only around for the summer. But all of these urban municipalities basically function the same. Their difference is mainly just population. Next, we have municipal districts. These municipal districts are commonly called counties in Alberta, but this is merely their name, and county isn't an official designation. They are similar to the urban municipalities, but represent more rural areas. They need to have a population of 1,000 people to incorporate, but do not have the same population density requirements. There are currently 64 municipal districts, and one way they differ from urban municipalities is that they are managed by a reeve instead of a mayor. And these reeves are elected by councillors instead of the people directly. But they are still incorporated governments that provide the typical municipal services. There are 6 specialized municipalities. These specialized municipalities are incorporated governments that combine urban and rural municipality governments into one. They are found in the more unpopulated areas of the province. This is beneficial so that the urban places can properly govern the more rural areas. 3 of these specialized municipalities also have county in their name, but again, this is merely a name and isn't an official designation. Improvement districts are places without a municipal government. They are instead governed by Alberta through its Ministry of Municipal Affairs. These improvement districts take up national or provincial parklands. Because of this, they are scarcely populated, and so local municipal government would be ineffective. There are 7 of them in total, and they have a collective population of just 2,100 people. And in fact, 3 of these districts have 0 people living in them entirely. Special areas are defined in their own Special Areas Act, but they act very similar to municipal districts. The difference is that they are governed by a unique Special Areas Board, which consists of 4 representatives elected directly by the province. There are only 3 of them, and they are all found in the southeastern portion of the province. Finally, we have the Métis settlements. Métis settlements were not defined under Alberta's Municipal Government Act. They were instead defined under the Métis Population Betterment Act of 1938, and now the Métis Settlement Act of 2000. The Métis people are descendants of Alberta's First Nations mixed with European fur traders. And while the Métis people are found all across Alberta and into other provinces, there are 8 Métis settlements specifically designated for them. They are their own municipalities which manage their own infrastructure, but they also have a unique function where they can limit their population to just Métis people. So those are Alberta's administrative divisions. But next, let's move on to British Columbia. British Columbia is primarily divided into regional districts. These regional districts are not fully considered to be municipalities or incorporated areas, but they provide some municipal services to unorganized and organized areas. Regional districts serve 3 primary functions. They provide region-wide services such as regional parks and 911 services. They provide services spanning several different municipalities, such as recreation facilities where people inside and outside the municipalities can benefit from the service. And they are able to provide some local services such as water and fire protection to unincorporated communities. So while these regional districts are not incorporated and do not provide every service, they still serve significant administrative function. This is in contrast to British Columbia's single regional municipality. This is the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. The difference here is that the entire Northern Rockies Regional Municipality is a single municipal government, which has full municipal functions. Another important distinction is that British Columbia's regional districts contain smaller municipalities, so that would be the 3rd level of administrative division. But the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality do not contain further subdivisions. So regional districts and regional municipalities already cover most of British Columbia. And there's also one unorganized area, which is named the Sticking Region. The next 4 divisions are a unique type of Indian reserve. They are the Tla'amin lands, Tsawwassen lands, Nishiga lands, and Malnuth lands. And sorry for my definitely not correct pronunciations. These nations, unlike typical Indian reserves, have a unique modern treaty, which give them even more sovereignty. They are not at all bounded by the federal government. Because of this, they can almost completely govern over their land. managing things like taxes and laws. All four of these nations have a different treaty with British Columbia and the federal government that sets aside each of their lands and specifically outlines their abilities. The earliest of these treaties was in the year 2000 with the Nisga'a Final Agreement. The most recent was the Thaamin Final Agreement in 2016. So while British Columbia is mostly just divided into regional districts, they have a few different oddities in how their land is divided. But now let's move on to Manitoba. Manitoba has just 3 divisions, that being urban municipalities, rural municipalities, and local government districts. Urban municipalities are similar to Alberta's urban municipalities. There are 3 types: cities, towns, and villages. An urban municipality can only form once it has at least 1,000 residents and a population density of at least 400 residents per square kilometer. The municipality can then choose to be a town or a village. There's no difference between the two. Or it can become a city if it has more than 7,500 people. Currently, there are 37 urban municipalities comprising 10 cities, 25 towns, and 2 villages. Rural municipalities also need a population of 1,000 people, but they do not have the density requirements. This obviously makes them more rural and sparse than urban municipalities, and there are currently 98 rural municipalities, all in the southern half of the province. Finally, there are only 2 local government districts, or LGDs. These are not defined in the same act, they are instead defined in the Local Government Districts Act. In Manitoba, the Lieutenant Governor in Council creates the LGDs as a way to give unorganized area local governments. They differ from regular municipalities in that they have one resident administrator, which manages over the entire land, and since they are in much more sparsely populated areas, they have more limited municipal function. So those are Manitoba's 3 types of divisions. Now let's move on to New Brunswick. New Brunswick only has 1 type of division, at least on this county level. Those being Regional Service Commissions, or RSCs. These RSCs do not have full municipal functions, but they do have some regional services, such as economic development, tourism promotion, community development, regional transportation, and regional recreation infrastructure. So they are kind of similar to British Columbia's regional districts in that they provide more region-based services, but do not have full municipal services. Currently, there are 12 regional service commissions in New Brunswick. They are governed by a board of directors. Next we have Newfoundland and Labrador. Most of Newfoundland and Labrador's land is simply unorganized territory, but there are also 250 municipalities. Much like every province, Newfoundland and Labrador has its own Municipalities Act. In this case, there are cities and towns on the map, and there are also Inuit community governments, but that situation's a bit more complicated and will be explained very shortly. But the Municipalities Act actually only allows for towns to form. The cities organize under their own provincial acts. And the only way for towns to organize is by request of the Lieutenant Governor in Council. So there is no population limit. Now there is one more area in Newfoundland and Labrador that is a bit more complicated, and that is Nunavut. This is a region within Labrador, which is claimed by the Labrador Inuit communities, and has some autonomy. On January 22, 2005, the Inuit of Nunavut signed the Labrador Inuit Land Claims Agreement, which gave them the abilities to make their own laws relating to cultural affairs, education, and health. This region also has its own president and board members. Within the region are the Inuit community governments that are defined in the Municipalities Act, which would technically be the 3rd level of subdivision, since they are smaller governments than the entire region of Nunavut. So while most of Newfoundland and Labrador is unorganized, there are still municipalities and this autonomous area. Nova Scotia has 4 unique divisions, and these divisions originate from Nova Scotia's 18 historical counties. These counties were created in 1759 and were uniquely judicial in their governance. They were not governed by local representatives such as a mayor or a council, but instead by court justices. And while they did provide some municipal functions, such as infrastructure and taxes, they mostly existed for courts. But in 1879, the County Incorporation Act was passed. As the name would suggest, these counties incorporated into municipalities. This established 12 county municipalities and 6 district municipalities out of the original 18 counties. Eventually, 3 of the county municipalities merged with Nova Scotia's 3 cities in the 1990s and became the regional municipalities. So this has left us with 11 district municipalities, 9 county municipalities, and 4 regional municipalities of today. All of these municipalities are incorporated governments which provide the typical municipal services and are governed by a council. Finally, Nova Scotia has towns that exist outside the municipalities. These towns are smaller, more dense urban areas that have their own government. And this is helpful for providing more local-based services to the towns. These towns can no longer form, but there are still 25 that exist. Next, there is Ontario. Ontario has 3 types of incorporated municipalities: single-tier municipalities, upper-tier municipalities, and lower-tier municipalities. Upper-tier municipalities are larger areas that consist of several lower-tier municipalities. As such, the lower tiers are not on the map, because they would be the 3rd level of division. There are 3 different types of these upper-tier municipalities, those being 19 counties, 3 united counties, and 8 regional municipalities. Regional municipalities, much like the ones in Nova Scotia, have more responsibilities than the counties or united counties. For example, they have to manage over their transit and waste disposal, whereas the counties do not. That is instead left to the lower tier municipalities. Then there are single tier municipalities. As the name would suggest, these are basically lower tier municipalities, but they are not part of an upper tier, thus forming a single-tier municipality. These single-tier municipalities provide all of their local services, and they can have the city, town, township, village, or simply municipality designation. But these titles do not differ in any way. Finally, Northern Ontario has districts. These are still unorganized areas, which means that they don't have a local government, but some districts do have District Social Services Administration Boards, which provide social services like childcare or homeless services. But other than that, they have no function and are mostly governed by the province. Prince Edward Island is similar to Newfoundland and Labrador, in that it really only has municipalities as its division, and the rest of the land is unorganized. The municipalities are split into cities, towns, rural municipalities, and resort municipalities. Under Prince Edward Island's Municipal Government Act, a city must have 15,000 people, a town 4,000 people, and a rural municipality are places that no longer meet these population requirements. Finally, a resort municipality is a unique type which gives voting rights to citizens who are only there seasonally. However, the resort municipalities can no longer form, and there's actually only one in existence today. And of course, all of these municipalities provide the typical services. Quebec is split up into regional county municipalities, or RCMs, and RCM equivalents. The regional county municipalities are again areas that are similar to New Brunswick's regional service commissions or British Columbia's regional districts, in that they do not have full municipal function, but provide some region-based services. Some of these services include managing local economic development, creating waste management plans, and managing the local transportation, to name a few. Currently, there are 87 regional county municipalities, but there are also 17 territorial equivalents to regional county municipalities, as seen as the darker color on the map. These territorial equivalents to regional county municipalities, simply known as TEs, consist of 5 urban agglomerations, which are essentially a combination of a few different municipalities, 9 independent cities, and 3 other territories. These places are not part of an RCM because they themselves hold the same power as an RCM, along with being incorporated municipalities as well. However, the 3 other territories, which are found in Nord du Quebec, have different rules for their equivalent territories. For example, Quebec is co-extensive, which means it takes up the exact same area with the region of Nunavik, which has its own government managed by the Quebec regional government. These 3 other territories were outlined in the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement, which gave them greater autonomy. So basically, Quebec's RCMs manage over some regional services, but some areas do not need this, due to them having their own government. Now, something interesting you'll notice on the map are these 2 regional county municipalities of lower opacity. And the reason for this is that Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec actually have a border dispute between the land. Now, I think this could be a topic for a different video, but basically, Quebec claims this land as their own and has designated it as 2 regional county municipalities, despite it not legally being theirs. But if you want to see a full video about that border dispute, let me know. And finally, we have the last province. Saskatchewan has urban municipalities and rural municipalities, similar to Manitoba. Its urban municipalities consist of cities, towns, villages, and resort villages. These are defined in the Municipalities Act and the Cities Act. A city is created from a town and must have a population of more than 5,000 people. Towns need to have a population of at least 500 people, and villages need to have at least 300 people. Finally, a resort village must have 300 people as well, but it also has a significant seasonal population. The rural municipalities are also incorporated, but unlike Manitoba's rural municipalities, there is not a population limit for these places. Instead, they are created by the Minister of Municipal Relations, and they are areas with lower population. Finally, the rest of the land is unorganized, though Saskatchewan actually splits its unorganized area into 2 different regions: the Northern Saskatchewan Administration District and Prince Albert National Park. But again, these are unorganized and have no unique privileges. Now that we've covered all the provinces, let's next look at the territories. The territories differ from the provinces in that all their powers are delegated by the federal government. The provinces, on the other hand, get their powers from the Constitution Act of 1867, which specifically outlines their powers. Because these territories have much less population than the provinces, you will see that the government is mostly just local communities, and so incorporated divisions are not common to find. The Northwest Territories have 5 administrative regions. Now, despite the name, these regions are unorganized. They have no local government. However, they are helpful for providing local services. Every region has 1 or 2 regional offices, and these regional offices provide programs and services along with promoting arts and culture and recreation. But overall, the Northwest Territories is mostly unorganized, with just a few small communities. In a similar way, Nunavut has 3 regions that are also unorganized. Much like Northwest Territories' administrative regions, these 3 regions have regional hubs that provide some services, such as providing financial services to these regions. Finally, we have the Yukon. Most of Yukon's land is unorganized, And there are not even any regional divisions defined at all. There are, however, 8 municipalities, 1 city, and 7 towns. The Municipal Act states that a town must have 300 people and a city must have 2,500 people. These cities, of course, provide the typical municipal services. So those have been the second level administrative divisions of Canada. They are definitely much more complicated than US counties. Each province has its own method of dividing its land into smaller governmental units. Some places like Nova Scotia have their divisions based on their history. Others like Newfoundland and Labrador have a lot of their land unorganized. And others like Alberta choose to have their land be mostly incorporated municipalities. But I hope that I was able to explain this crazy situation well. If you would like to purchase a poster of this map, check out geobradmapping.com. Also let me know if you would like to see a similar video for other countries, such as Mexico. But I will see you guys in the next video.